2004, after the enactment of the National Forestry and Tree Planting Act of 2003, which created National Forestry Authority and gave it the mandate to be responsible for the management of the Central Forest Reserves in Uganda. The same law also gave the responsibility for the management of forestry outside the Central Forest Reserves, that is the local forest reserves and forestry in private and communal land. The responsibility was vested in the District Forest Service under the district local government. NFA, therefore, has been in existence for the last 17 years. It is under the general supervision of the minister responsible for forestry. That is the Minister for Water and Environment for now. NFA has a board of directors which does the day-to-day general supervision and direction of the authority. And to date, the board is composed of 6 members, including the executive director, who is the secretary to the board. But we have one vacant position in the board, and the minister will soon appoint the 7th board member. One of the functions of the board is to set procedures for the general management of the staff, and also to appoint the staff of the authority. And the board also gives guidance to the executive director. So that is how far NFA has come. 17 years down the road, and NFA has a vision, and our current vision, which was done in 2020 when we did the new strategic plan of 2021 to 2025, the vision is to be a world-class global leader in sustainable forestry management. Yes, somebody may say it is a very ambitious vision, but I think it is always important to dream big so that you also try to catch up with what is happening in the world. Under the same strategic planning, we also came up with a mission which hinges on sustainable management of the forest reserves in the country, but also hinges on provision of high-quality forest products to the people of Uganda for the socio-economic development of the country. If you are aware, most of our planning now is tied towards the national development plans. And to date, we are implementing NDP 3, and when you look at our goals, we try to really align it with the national development aspirations. Now, NFA activities really hinges on the sustainable management of the central forest reserves in the country, and the functions of the authority was established under the law, that is the National Forestry and Tree Planting Act, and one of the functions is the development and management of all central forest reserves in the country. We have a total of 506 central forest reserves with a total land area of 1.265 million hectares. That is 12,657 square kilometers of forest reserve land. I really want to correct some thinking of the general public that a forest reserve must have trees or must have a forest. A forest reserve is land reserved for forestry purposes. It can be land under forest, under tropical high forest. It can also be land under savanna woodland or land under savanna grassland that is reserved for forestry activities. Now, one of the other role of NFA is to identify and recommend areas for gazetting or for degazetting. For gazetting as a forest reserve or forest reserve which no longer performs the function of a forest reserve and therefore should be degazetted. And we are also mandated to promote innovative approaches for bringing on board the communities neighboring these forest reserves to participate into forestry management activities. I will tell you how far we have gone down the road. We are supposed to prepare and implement forest management plans for the forest reserves in this country, and forest management plans are prepared in a participatory manner involving the local governments where this forest exists, involving the local communities, because we normally put on take cognition of the role and then what the communities also desire from these forest reserves. We are supposed to establish procedures for utilization of Ugandan's forest resources. And, you know, forestry is one of the primary growth sector. And we want to contribute towards the employment and job creation and also industrialization of the country. I will tell you how far we have gone in that line. We cooperate with other lead agencies, with other ministries, departments, and agencies. As I will tell you, that forestry is one of the cross-cutting sector, and we normally collaborate with several sectors. We collaborate with National Environment Management Authority and other lead agencies in the management of Uganda's forest. And we also control, in collaboration with other regulatory authorities, we control the mining and development of mineral resources within the forest reserves. So that is what NFA is supposed to do. And over the years, we have had some achievements. We have also had so many challenges, which I now want to turn my attention to. In as far as plantation forestry is concerned, you know, forestry in Uganda, we are looking at conservation forestry and also plantation or production forestry. Forestry is supposed to contribute resources to the people for the development of the nation. And under plantation development, as a National Forestry Authority, from the time it was started in 2004, we have managed to date to establish about 12,400 hectares of commercial forest plantation. What do I mean by commercial forest plantation? These are plantation crops. We are looking at eucalyptus, we are looking at cypress, we are looking at pines, we are looking at musisi. By the way, it is not only the conifers, it is all, both hard and softwood, both conifers and broadleaf species. That is how we classify them. So NFA has a plantation area of about 12,427 hectares. And we have done valuation of this asset. This is a planted asset. And our asset is valued at over 107 billion Uganda shillings. That is the plantation forestry. Leave alone the mabiras, leave alone the budongos, those are natural forests. We have not done valuation for all of them. We have done valuation for mabira, valuation for budongo, but we are yet to do valuation for other forests. It's a very expensive process. NFA has also participated in the increase in the forest cover. And as you are aware, the forest cover in Uganda by 1990 was about 24%. And this fell over the years tremendously. And I will tell you when I reach the challenges that it fell tremendously for reasons which I'm going to explain. And by around 2015, it had fallen to about 9% forest cover. To date, we are talking of 12.4%. And I think we are proud that NFA has been part of the journey to the increase in the forest cover in the country through provision of seedlings to the communities, to the people who want to buy and sell, but others we have also given them free of charge. And on average, we have been giving between 10 to 15 million seedlings every year to the communities for community tree planting. But also we have been selling over 15 million seedlings to the people. So we are part of the journey for the increase in the tree cover in the country. We have managed to demarcate the forest boundaries. Traditionally, forestry had no conspicuous boundary markers. At the time of the British and at the time of Forest Department, the boundaries of forest reserves were marked by what we call directional trenches. Directional trenches, they would dig a trench at the corners of a forest boundary, where the forest boundary is making either 90%, 30%, 150% degree turn. They would put a trench to show that the forest has come from this direction and it has turned to the other direction. That is the boundary line. Now, they would also use what we call canes, corner canes. Corner canes, those were just heaps of rocks, of stones. Now, with the development in the country, with the increase in population, these corner canes were used for building because these are rocks, heaps. So you find half a tractor of rock heap at the boundary of a forest. Somebody goes and picks and goes to build. So the boundaries of the forest became and conspicuous, and you will not see it. So NFA embarked on the journey of marking these boundaries with concrete pillars, concrete markers. If you have driven along the roads in Uganda, you have seen these boundary pillars, the road reserve pillars put by Uganda National Road Authority. So NFA is using similar technology and putting pillars which are slightly higher than the one of National Road Authority along our forest boundaries. We have started from scratch. To date, we have managed to make close to about 4,000 kilometers of forest boundaries marked with pillars. Remember, we are talking of 10,000 kilometers of boundaries. So we have done about 40%, but we are continuing with the journey. On annual basis, we plan, we budget for marking the boundaries. And a clear boundary is one of the recipe for good forest management, for ensuring the integrity of the forest reserves. Where the boundaries are not clear, we are seeing encroachment taking place and becoming a very big challenge to us. So we are on that journey of marking the boundaries of all the forest reserves. We have also managed to recover almost 450,000 hectares of encroached forest from the encroachers. The recent most successful recovery was in West Nile, where we recover about 20,000 hectares of Mount Kay Central Forest Reserve, which was encroached. And this time we did not use force. We engaged, we did a lot of engagement spanning into about 2 years, and the encroachers voluntarily left the forest reserve before the lockdown. So that has been a very successful, what we call eviction, but eviction in quotes because there was no force used. We have managed also to identify illegally created titles. You know, people are creating titles in forest reserve for land. These are the land grabbers. To date, we have identified and cancelled about 300 titles. We, as I talk now, we have 420 titles pending cancellation with the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. And these titles are there. The process requires that you do a public hearing for the people who are affected, so that they come and just give a justification for having a title in a forest reserve. So we are still waiting for the due process to be completed, and then we can, those titles can be cancelled. We have also managed, as I told you earlier on, that one of our functions is to do innovative approaches for involving the communities in the forest reserve management. To date, we have signed collaborative forest management agreements with the neighboring communities. These are communities that are affected by the existence of the forest reserves. And we have effectively, we are managing about 56,000 hectares together with these communities. They're accessing some benefits, accessing water, accessing medicinal plants, accessing craft materials from the forest reserve, accessing firewood, that is the dry wood for cooking. And it is part of the benefit sharing, so that they can also benefit from the existence of the forest reserves. The other achievement is that we have made available land under the private-public partnerships. Avail land to the private sector, totaling to about 150,000 hectares for commercial tree planting. And as I talk now, we have over 100,000 hectares planted in forest reserves by commercial farmers. And some of them are big farmers. I think the biggest farmer is Nile Ply and Nile Fiber Board, the makers of the plywood, the MDFs, the particle boards. They are now planting over, they have planted over 20,000 hectares now in the forest reserve. The second biggest planter is NFA. The first is Nile Ply, followed by NFA. And countrywide, we have also seen a very big increase in commercial forestry. If you drive out of Kampala on any road, drive on Jinja Road, drive going towards Masaka, drive going towards Luero, drive going towards Fort Portal, you will see so many plantations established. Some of them, in fact, most of it is outside the forest reserves. Our plantation forestry in the country now stands at 626,000 hectares of planted forest. This includes both the conifers and then the broadleaves. The conifers are mainly pines. The broadleaves, we have musizi, we have eucalyptus, We have the terminalia. Those are the main broadleaf species. So the other achievement is that we have managed now also to embrace ICT in forest management. NFA has one of the best, I think it is the best GIS laboratory in Uganda. If you go in extreme end of this building, you'll see the GIS lab. We can monitor even the forest from here. We can see what is happening, but not necessarily in real time, but we can detect encroachment in the forest. Now, yes, not all is rosy. We have faced some challenges, and notable challenges. One of them is including inadequate funding to the authority. For example, in the last 5 years, I can tell you that we operated at about 56% of the funding which was required. In other words, 5 years, our budget was met to the tune of 56%, which was slightly more than half. So that means the output had to be adjusted downwards. So we did not achieve all our planned activities and all our planned targets. We also have inadequate capacity in terms of what we call organizational capacity, staffing, for example. We don't have dedicated forest ranger force, which is charged with the day-to-day management of the forest reserve. We don't have that logistical capacity, not adequate logistical capacity in terms of vehicles, in terms of equipment for forest management and monitoring. We are now employing technology. I've told you we need the smartphones, we need GPSs for us to do day-to-day and real-time forest monitoring. The other challenge was the poor coordination and the dichotomous legal provisions. I've already told you that the management of forestry in Uganda was given to two institutions. One, the National Forest Authority and the District Forest Service. So we have not seen very good coordination between NFA and the District Forest Service, which has led to some weaknesses in the management of the resources which we are entitled to manage. We have seen a problem of illegal titling of forest reserve land, which I've already talked about. We have seen challenges of population increase. Uganda has the fourth highest population growth rate globally, standing at about 3.3%. This population increase, for example, by 2002, Uganda was 24.2 million people. Now, 20 years down the road, we are over 40 million. This puts a lot of demand for forest products, also as a result of the growth in the economy. Because of that population increase, the demand for agriculture increases, demand for construction material increases, wood fuel, because we are over 90% of the population is using fuel wood, that is charcoal and firewood. So because of that, we have seen that decline in the forest cover from 1990 to 2015, which was at 9%. And we also witnessed one of the fastest, the highest deforestation rate of over 2% in the country. The highest was on land outside the forest reserves. That was in communal land and then private forest, where we registered up to about 2.5% loss per annum. The lowest was in the national parks and game reserve, wildlife reserves, where the loss was recorded at about 0.4%. And in forest reserve, we had that loss of about 1.1%. Now, one statistic which is very important for you to note is that the percentage of forestry in the protected areas, in the forest reserves and game reserves and wildlife conservation areas, has increased from 30% in 1990 to 59% by last year. While in public land, it has fallen from 70% to about 41%. That is the proportion of the forest cover. So that shows you that there is a problem, because the bigger forest was outside the protected area. But now we are seeing a very big challenge there. Now, what is the way forward? Or what is the impact of COVID-19? COVID-19 came as a shock to us. As I talk now, our budget has been reduced, has been cut by 41.2% across the board for the whole country. Most of the departments, most of the agencies have got a 41.2% budget cut. That means our activities have been curtailed. That means the forest management activities is going to be affected. and that is blame it on COVID, because COVID has affected the economy, therefore affecting the revenue of the state, where we derive the resources for the management of these resources. COVID has also led to people losing jobs. And during the first lockdown, people went away from Kampala and attacked the forest, looking for survival, looking for charcoal, looking for firewood. And it was a big issue. We were running up and down, arresting people. In fact, the level of illegal utilization of the natural resources, not only forest, but even in national parks. Because I remember at that time the executive director of OA addressing a press conference and saying even the level of poaching has increased in the national parks because of people looking for alternative livelihoods. So COVID has affected us, it has affected the economy, it has affected the forest management. It has also affected investment in forestry, because even the private forest producers have to invest money, and you cannot invest money unless you have it. So that is a big challenge. Now, what are our future plans? Our focus now as NFA is the development of commercial forest plantations. I've already told you we have about 12,200 hectares. Our plan is to eat about 20,000 hectares in the next 4 to 5 years. And we think if we can eat that 20,000 hectares and manage it professionally, NFA can be self-sustaining, just from exploitation of the plantation forest. We don't want to go into exploiting the natural forest now. Because of environmental concerns, this natural forest should now be our shock absorbers. It must absorb for us the carbon. It must also get for us the rainfall which we need. We are talking of climate change. We cannot afford now to lose more natural forest. We need to manage what we have and even restore them. So that is one thing we need to concentrate on: commercial forestry, plantation forestry. We also want the private sector to plant another 100,000 hectares in the forest reserve to boost that demand for, because the economy is growing, the demand is increasing, so we need more forest products. We want to promote on-farm forestry, tree growing. We want to restore degraded natural forest for conservation purposes. I've already talked about it. For water catchment. We want to add value to the forest products. We want industrialization from forestry. We want to create jobs. You can only create jobs when industries come to, for example, now I think one of the most important targets is the country want to make paper. Uganda is spending about $300 million importing paper into the country. What about if we make it from here? And then we want to enhance our capacity as an institution, the human resource, the technical, the financial, and also improve on our collaboration with the private sector. And then finally, we want to improve the collaboration. So who are the players? We have had partners whom we have worked with. We have United States Agency for International Development, USAID, that have been supporting us in boundary opening, in management planning, in doing the guidelines, the strategic planning. So we want to thank USAID for that. We also want to thank WWF, that is the Worldwide Fund for Nature. We have recently signed a memorandum of cooperation for management of some forest reserves in the Albertine Rift with them. We have WCS, that is Wildlife Conservation Society. Just today I was receiving equipment from Wildlife Conservation Society for forestry monitoring. Laptops, smartphones, GPS. So those are our partners. We are looking forward to getting some funding from the Swedish government, from the Irish government, and from the International Development Association, that is the World Bank. So they are coming on board to support forestry in this country. So I want to thank them. I want to thank all the players that we have been, the local government. I don't want to forget them. These have been our people, the politicians. We have been working with them. And I also want to thank the press. I want to thank UBC, especially because we have been with them. I think this is my third time appearing on the screen with UBC. And I thank you so much.